Chosen one, stop for a moment. Look at the way you have been seeing yourself lately. Something feels different. You may not have words for it yet, but the person in the mirror no longer feels exactly like the person who survived the last season. And yes, even your hair may have started drawing your attention in a new way. Maybe you have wanted to change it. Maybe an old style suddenly feels wrong. Maybe you keep touching it, looking at it, or imagining yourself wearing it differently. That urge may seem small, but it can become a visible sign that your inner identity is no longer comfortable wearing the same outer expression. Do not rush to explain it away. This is not about chasing an image. It is not about proving anything to anyone. The deeper question is why this desire is appearing now, after a season when you may have barely had energy to think about how you looked at all. You have been carrying more than people could see. You smiled when you were tired. You answered messages when you wanted silence. You kept showing up for people who rarely asked what it cost you, and somewhere along the way, being visible began to feel heavier than being hidden. There were days when survival became your style. You chose what required the least attention. You moved through rooms, hoping no one would ask too much. And while other people may have called that simplicity, your spirit knew there was a deeper reason you stopped wanting to be fully seen. Chosen one, this matters. The version of you that entered that difficult season learned how to disappear in plain sight. You became skilled at staying useful without staying present, and you carried everyone else while slowly forgetting how it felt to recognize yourself with warmth. But something is shifting now. You are noticing details again. You are hearing your own preferences again. You are becoming curious about how you want to show up, and that curiosity is often one of the first quiet signs that survival is losing its grip on your identity. Think about the last time you looked in the mirror and paused, not because you hated what you saw, not because something was wrong. You paused because some part of you whispered, "This no longer looks like the season I am entering," and that whisper stayed with you longer than you expected. That is the open door in this message. Your hair is not the final answer. It is the clue. What matters is why something so visible is suddenly becoming important at the exact moment your inner world is asking for honesty, clarity, and permission to live differently. Maybe you have felt this in other ways too. You are less tolerant of noise. You notice when a room feels false. You no longer want to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, and you may feel a strange pull toward quiet, not because you are empty, but because you are listening for what is next. You may have mistaken that heaviness for losing yourself. You were not losing yourself. You were reaching the limit of an identity built around endurance, silence, and constant availability. When that identity begins to loosen, even small choices can suddenly feel deeply personal. Do not answer too quickly. Let the question sit. Chosen one, you have spent enough time reacting to pain. You are entering a season where you begin choosing from recognition instead of fear, and that changes the way you carry your face, your voice, your posture, and even your sense of presentation. Some people will not understand the shift. They only know the version of you that stayed available. They know the one who made everything easy for them. But the watchman is learning that being faithful does not mean remaining endlessly accessible to every demand, every opinion, and every draining presence. Your crown was never about attention. It was about presence. It was about the quiet authority of knowing who you are without begging a room to agree. And that kind of authority often begins before anyone else can name what has changed. This is where many chosen ones get confused. They think transformation must arrive as one giant moment, but often it begins as a quiet refusal, a small internal no, a new preference, a sudden desire to stop carrying something that belongs to an older season. You may be feeling that refusal now. You do not want to dress like fear. You do not want to speak like fear. You do not want to shape your entire presence around staying unnoticed, and even the way you imagine your hair can become part of that deeper permission to stop hiding. If you know an old version of you is ending, write "I am ready" in the comments. Do it as a simple marker of recognition, not for anyone else, not to perform spirituality. Let it mean that you are willing to notice the person emerging underneath the habits that once kept you safe. Maybe it began when you stopped chasing one relationship. Maybe it began when you stopped defending yourself. Maybe it began when you realized that peace felt better than being understood, and for the first time, you let silence protect what endless explanation never could. That was not weakness. That was formation. You were learning to separate your identity from the reactions of people around you. And once that separation starts, the outside of your life often begins asking to catch up with the inside. Chosen one, stay close to this thought. What you are noticing around your hair is not valuable because hair holds some magical power. It is valuable because it may be helping you notice that your sense of self is becoming alive enough to make choices again. That pattern is weakening. You are becoming harder to pull away from yourself. You are noticing what drains you faster. You are returning to preferences you once abandoned, and that return can feel almost unfamiliar because you have spent so long translating yourself for everyone else. This is the first revelation. The visible sign is not the story. The story is that you are becoming present again. You are becoming available to your own life. And that may be why even something as ordinary as your hair suddenly feels connected to a much deeper turning point. But I have not told you the most important part yet. There is a reason this kind of outward change often appears when a chosen one is leaving a hidden season, and the reason has less to do with appearance than with the identity you have been carrying underneath it. The old identity was built to endure. The next identity is being built to be seen. That difference changes everything, because the moment you stop organizing yourself around survival, you begin asking a new question. What would I choose if fear were no longer making the decision? Hold that question. Do not solve it yet. The next part will take you beneath the surface, because what is changing did not start with your hair, and it did not start with a mirror. It started with something inside you that you thought you had lost years ago. Chosen one, the change you are sensing did not begin in the mirror. It began much deeper. It began when the identity that carried you through survival stopped feeling like home. You can honor the person who endured that season, while still admitting that you were never meant to live there forever. For a long time, your outer life matched your inner assignment to survive. You kept things simple because your energy was being spent elsewhere. You learned to move quietly, protect your peace, and avoid unnecessary attention. But now, something inside you is asking for a different expression, because the old covering no longer fits the person becoming visible. There is another layer here. When people spend too long in exhaustion, delay, and emotional noise, they can lose touch with their own clarity. Choices become harder. Desire becomes muted. Even simple decisions can feel distant because the mind has been trained to respond to pressure instead of listening to what truly feels aligned. That is why this season is not really about appearance. It is about recognition. You are beginning to hear your own preferences again. You are starting to notice what feels like you and what does not. The shift may appear small from the outside, but inside, it can feel like a door opening after years of moving through the same narrow hallway. And this is where I want to mention one simple resource, then we will return immediately to the deeper message. Some people in this community have used a 7-minute audio called The Genius Song as a support for focus and mental clarity. Its creators describe it as using brain entrainment designed around gamma activity. You do not need to rush toward anything. You do not need to force a decision. I am mentioning it because the deeper problem is not your hair. It is the fog that can appear when stress, repetition, and constant giving pull you away from your own inner signal. If that sounds familiar, you can look at the resource below later. For now, stay with the meaning. The tool is not the transformation. It is only one possible support. The real work is already happening in the way you are beginning to notice yourself again, because clarity often returns first as a small preference before it becomes a strong direction. Think about how many choices you made during the old season simply to get through the day. You wore what was easiest. You said what kept the peace. You delayed things you wanted because somebody else needed something first. None of that made you weak, but over time, survival can make a person forget what wholehearted choice feels like. Then one day, something changes. You notice a color you like. You imagine a different style. You feel drawn to clean your space, move your furniture, change your routine, or refresh the way you present yourself. These acts may look ordinary, but together they can reveal that your inner world is reclaiming the right to participate. Your hair becomes powerful as a symbol because it sits where a crown would rest. Not because every strand carries supernatural force, not because changing a style creates destiny. The image matters because a crown represents presence, identity, dignity, and the willingness to stand where you once tried to disappear. You have been wearing an invisible crown beneath visible exhaustion. You kept serving while depleted. You kept believing while confused. You kept moving even when your sense of direction felt weak. And now the deeper invitation is not to become someone else, but to stop hiding the person who survived long enough to become wise. There is a reason the old look can suddenly feel uncomfortable. It may belong emotionally to a version of you who was always bracing for the next disappointment. That version needed protection. That version needed simplicity. That version may have learned that being unnoticed felt safer than being fully present. But safety and calling are not always the same thing. There comes a point when hiding begins to cost more than visibility. You start realizing that the walls that once protected you are now blocking your own light. The habits that helped you endure can also prevent you from expressing the peace you worked so hard to recover. This is why the change can feel almost sacred. Not because the mirror has become magical, not because your appearance controls your future. It feels sacred because you are making room for alignment, and alignment is what happens when your outer choices stop contradicting the truth your inner life has already accepted. Chosen one, your crown is not returning because somebody finally approved you. It is returning because you are no longer waiting for permission. You are becoming less interested in being accepted by every room and more interested in entering each room without abandoning yourself at the door. That is a major shift. The old version of you asked, what will keep everyone comfortable? The emerging version asks, what is honest, peaceful, and aligned? Those questions lead to very different lives because one creates performance while the other creates presence. The deeper question is not, how should my hair look? The deeper question is, who am I becoming when I no longer organize my life around fear? That question reaches far beyond appearance, and once you answer it with your choices, the outside of your life begins to reorganize around a stronger center. That habit is beginning to break. Your inner signal is getting louder. You are learning that discernment is not only about detecting danger, it is also about recognizing what gives you peace. That shift changes your relationships, your routines, your work, and even the way you allow your own face to meet the world. So when you feel drawn to refresh something visible, do not reduce it to vanity, but do not turn it into superstition either. Hold the middle path. Let it be a sign that you are becoming attentive again, because attention is often the doorway through which identity becomes conscious. The old season taught you endurance. The new season is teaching you expression. Endurance kept you moving when you had no answers. Expression will teach you how to move when the answer is finally becoming clear, and those are two different forms of strength that belong to two different chapters. This is the reframe I want you to remember. The divine thing is not that every strand suddenly becomes supernatural. The divine thing is that you are no longer willing to wear the identity of the season that nearly emptied you. That is why the old presentation can begin to feel too small. And there is still one mystery left. Why does the outside sometimes start shifting before the new season becomes fully visible? Why do preferences change before circumstances do? The answer has to do with preparation, because sometimes identity receives permission before the environment receives evidence. That is where we are going next. Your crown is not being decorated for attention, it is being prepared for visibility. And before the world notices anything different about you, you are being trained to recognize the difference in yourself first. Chosen one. Visibility begins long before a room notices you. It begins when you stop shrinking inside yourself. Nothing around you may look dramatically different yet, but your tolerance for hiding is getting smaller, and your willingness to stand in your own presence is getting stronger. Think about David before the crown. He was still in the field when nobody expected him to matter. Joseph carried a dream long before he carried authority. Their environments did not immediately change, but their preparation had already started, because the person who will be seen must first learn how to remain grounded. That is the pattern you are entering. You are not being prepared merely to look different. You are being prepared to remain yourself when attention increases. Real visibility asks whether you can stay anchored when people praise, question, misunderstand, or suddenly notice what they ignored before. This is why your inner restoration matters. A person who cannot recognize their own voice can become controlled by every outside reaction. But when clarity returns, attention loses some of its power. You can hear applause without depending on it, and criticism without letting it become your identity. For a long time, you may have confused disappearing with peace. You stayed quiet because explaining yourself felt exhausting. You made yourself smaller because conflict took too much energy. Eventually, hiding became easier than repeatedly fighting to be understood. But hiding has a cost. When you stay invisible for too long, you can forget that you were created to participate. You start editing your joy before anyone criticizes it. You soften your ideas before anyone rejects them. And caution slowly becomes a habit. Now that habit is breaking. You can feel it in the way your preferences are returning. You are less willing to carry confusion just to keep another person comfortable, and something in you is remembering how to stand upright. This is why the crown image matters. A crown is not valuable because it makes someone superior. It represents responsibility. It represents the willingness to carry what has been placed on your life without constantly hiding from the weight of being recognized. Your hair became part of this message because it sits where that crown would rest. The symbol is not magic. It simply points to a deeper truth. Your outer presentation may begin shifting when your inner life becomes ready to stop apologizing for existing. Joseph could not carry palace responsibility with prison thinking. David could not carry public leadership while remaining emotionally trapped in the field. Their stories remind us that preparation includes the inner life, because visibility without formation can turn opportunity into another kind of pressure. Your preparation is happening there too. You are learning to receive attention without performing. You are learning to speak without over-explaining. You are learning to leave certain rooms without guilt. And those choices are teaching you that visibility does not have to mean danger. But you are not in that chapter anymore. Protection is changing form. Instead of disappearing, you are learning discernment. You are becoming selective about who gets access to your time, your energy, your private thoughts, and your unfinished dreams. If this message is putting words around something you have been feeling, tap like as a marker that you recognize the shift. And if someone you care about has been disappearing inside survival, share this with them. One clear message can help a person remember that they are allowed to return to themselves. Chosen one, the new season will ask more of your clarity than the old one did. Hiding required endurance. Visibility requires discernment. You need to know what belongs to you, what deserves your response, and what should pass without receiving your energy. That is why the quiet work matters. The boundaries, the pauses, the moments when you choose not to answer immediately. The decision to stop treating urgency from other people as an automatic command. Those choices rebuild the internal space where direction becomes easier to hear. You may remember the simple resource I mentioned earlier. Set that resource aside for a moment. The important point is what it represented. Sometimes the desire underneath a tool is really the desire to feel clear again, focused again, awake again, and connected to the part of yourself that once moved with certainty. Do not miss that. Your deepest hunger is not for another object or another promise. It is for restoration of inner signal. You want to recognize your own mind without constant noise, and make decisions without dragging layers of fear into every simple choice. This is where the message turns. Your hair was the entry point, your visibility is the middle, but the real issue has always been whether you can become present enough to recognize what your life is asking from you now. Why did the outer sign appear before the full change? Because identity often moves first. Before circumstances shift, your standards shift. Before the room changes, your posture changes. Before new opportunities arrive, your tolerance for old patterns begins collapsing. Sometimes the most important proof is internal. You stop begging, you stop chasing, you stop over-explaining. You stop making choices that keep you attached to the version of yourself built around fear. Then the outside begins catching up with what the inside has already decided. Your preferences change. Your energy becomes more selective. Your sense of presentation becomes more intentional. Even the mirror can start feeling different, not because the market had changed, but because the person looking into it is no longer asking the same questions. Chosen one, here is what you need to understand before we move forward. The reason you felt disconnected was not because your identity disappeared. Survival noise became louder than your inner signal. The shift you are experiencing now is the return of attention, choice, and self-recognition. The visible changes are only the what. They may show up in your style, your boundaries, your routines, or the way you carry yourself. But the why is deeper. You are leaving an identity organized around hiding, and you are becoming the person who can remain grounded while being seen. And who is this for? It is for the chosen one who spent too long believing exhaustion was humility. It is for the watchman who disappeared while protecting everyone else. It is for the cycle breaker who understands that the next chapter cannot be built with the habits that survived the last one. Hold these truths together. You were not empty. You were overloaded. You are not becoming someone fake. You are becoming more available to what was already true beneath the pressure. And that is why your crown is beginning to feel less like decoration and more like responsibility. Now we are ready for the deeper reveal. Clarity is not only something you feel, it can become something you intentionally support, protect, and practice. And once that inner signal grows stronger, the meaning of your returning crown becomes impossible to misunderstand. Chosen one, now clarity becomes something you can support on purpose. The new season asks you to protect your inner signal, because visibility becomes easier when your mind is not constantly scattered. You remember the resource I mentioned earlier. It is called the Genius Song. Its creators describe it as a 7-minute audio designed around brain entrainment and gamma activity, with the goal of supporting focus, clarity, and a more alert state of mind. It is not a miracle switch, and it is not a replacement for your judgment. The product information credits Dr. Robert Lake, who is described as having worked in this field for 34 years. The material says the audio is simple to use with headphones without a complicated ritual, and that it is intended to create a short daily space where attention can become easier to direct. If your deeper struggle has been brain fog, distraction, or feeling mentally distant from the sharp version of yourself you remember, that is why this resource may feel relevant. Its creators frame it as a support tool, not as the source of your identity, calling, or worth. There is one important distinction. This audio is not being presented as something that changes your hair. It does not create a crown. It does not make someone chosen. The connection here is clarity, because clearer attention can help you make outer choices with more intention. According to the offer information, the regular price is $49, while the current special price is $39. The package also includes 4 digital bonuses that the creators value at $80 in total. The 4 bonuses cover learning, visualization, habits, and mental development. The creators position them as extra tools for people who want stronger routines around attention and mental performance. The offer states that there is a 90-day refund period. It says you can request a refund within that time and still keep the 4 bonuses. The product material also reports more than 18,000 users and a refund rate under 4%, although those figures come from the creators and should be understood as their claims. If you decide to explore it, use only the verified link in the description or pinned comment. The creators warn against unofficial copies on other platforms. There is no need to rush. Read the information, decide calmly, and choose only if it fits what you are looking for. The Genius Song is one possible tool for supporting focus and mental clarity. It is not the revelation of this message. Your next step is still your own, and your identity remains bigger than any resource you could choose to use. Now put the tool aside for a moment. The deepest part of this message was never about an audio, and it was never only about your hair. Everything we have built toward is about the person underneath the appearance, the person who learned to survive by becoming less visible. You thought the sign was the change in presentation. You thought the mystery was why your hair suddenly mattered, but the real shift began earlier. It began when you stopped agreeing with the version of yourself that believed disappearing was the safest way to live. Here is the reveal. Your hair is not the miracle. Your return is. The mirror is only helping you notice that something inside has started moving again, and the desire to change what surrounds your face may reflect the fact that you are no longer willing to hide behind an old identity. Chosen one, your crown was never missing because your appearance was wrong. It felt absent because survival taught you to lower your presence. You learned to enter rooms quietly, speak carefully, and reduce yourself before anyone else could decide you were too much. But that agreement is ending. You are no longer shaping every choice around somebody else's approval. That is why the outside can begin changing now, because the inside has stopped asking fear for permission and started choosing from recognition. Visibility does not mean becoming louder. It means becoming anchored enough that you do not abandon yourself when attention arrives. You can be visible and private. You can be recognized and still have boundaries, because discernment can protect you without erasing you. Think again about the crown. A crown represents responsibility, not decoration. Your crown returning means fear is no longer supposed to make every decision for you. This is why the timing matters. The outer shift can come before the environment changes, because identity is being prepared first. You may still be in the same house, the same work, or the same routine, but you are not moving through those spaces with the same internal agreement. People may notice something they cannot name, They may call it confidence or style. But what they are really noticing is that you have stopped leaking your authority through constant self-doubt, and that difference can be felt before it can be explained. Some will welcome the change. Others may resist it because your old availability benefited them. Their discomfort does not mean you are wrong. It may only mean they are meeting a version of you that no longer repeats the same pattern. This is where the watchman becomes visible. You observe without absorbing everything. You care without carrying everyone. You listen without surrendering discernment. And when something does not belong in the next chapter, you no longer need a dramatic argument before you release it. The generational cycle breaker rises here too. You stop teaching the people after you that love requires self-erasure. You stop passing down the idea that goodness means permanent exhaustion, and service no longer has to mean abandoning yourself. Now the open loop can close. Why did your outer presentation begin changing before your circumstances did? Because preparation often reaches identity before it reaches environment. You needed to recognize the person who could carry the next season before the next season demanded that person from you. Why did the old look begin to feel wrong? Because it was tied to an agreement that was ending. Why did the crown image keep returning? Because the transformation was never cosmetic. It was the restoration of presence, choice, clarity, and the willingness to stand where you once disappeared. Chosen one, your hair may change or it may not. That is not the promise. The deeper message is that the person in the mirror no longer has to carry the posture of the season that wounded you. You can honor who you were without remaining who you had to become. You can thank the survivor and still release the survival identity. You can remember the hidden season without building a home there. Endurance was never meant to make hiding permanent. Your crown is returning because you are returning. Your choices are returning. Your standards are returning. Your voice is returning. And the more fully you become present to your own life, the less power old fear has to decide how small you are allowed to be. There is one step left. The next part is about sealing this shift with decision, not pressure. You will release the version that survived by disappearing and carry the next season with peace, clarity, and a crown that needs no permission. Chosen one, now we arrive at the final step. Not the loudest step, but the one that matters most. You have seen the sign, understood the pattern, and recognized the deeper shift beneath it. Now the question is simple. Will you keep returning to the identity that survived by disappearing, or will you live from the person you are becoming? Before we seal this message, remember the resource I mentioned earlier. If supporting your focus and mental clarity feels relevant, you can review the Genius Song through the verified link in the description or pinned comment. Read the details for yourself, move without pressure, and decide only if it genuinely fits what you want to explore. That resource is optional. Your transformation is not for sale. No audio can hand you an identity that you refuse to claim, and no product can replace the choices that teach your mind and your relationships that hiding is no longer the only way to feel safe. The real work begins when the message ends. It begins the next time you look in the mirror and refuse to speak to yourself like an enemy. It begins when an old habit pulls you backward, and instead of obeying it automatically, you pause long enough to choose from clarity. Your hair may become part of that choice. You may want a different style. You may keep it exactly as it is. Either decision can be meaningful when it comes from freedom rather than fear, because the point was never to force an outward change. This is your first declaration. I release the version of me that survived by disappearing. Let those words reach the places where you learned that being unnoticed was safer than being seen. Protection can now come through wisdom instead of self-erasure. Your second declaration is this: I do not need to hide what God is restoring. Restoration does not require performance. You do not have to announce every shift or explain every boundary. Some of the strongest changes grow quietly before they become visible. Your third declaration is simple. I receive clarity. Not perfect certainty about every future decision. Clarity means becoming less divided inside, so you can hear what matters, recognize what drains you, and move without constantly betraying your own convictions. Your fourth declaration is this: I receive courage. Courage is not the absence of discomfort. It is the decision to remain present when the old version of you would have disappeared, and to make one honest choice even when you cannot see the entire road ahead. Your fifth declaration reaches the outer life. I allow my outer life to catch up with my inner transformation. That can mean changing a routine, protecting a morning, wearing something differently, speaking more clearly, or releasing an environment that keeps pulling you back towards survival. And your final declaration is the seal. I carry my crown without apology. The crown is not superiority. It is responsibility. It means you stop asking permission to exist with dignity, boundaries, discernment, and peace. Chosen one, this is the detachment. You are separating from the identity that believed suffering had to become permanent. You can honor the lessons without continuing the pattern. You can remember the seasons that shaped you without giving them authority over every chapter that follows. Then comes the clearing. Some things may suddenly feel too noisy. Certain conversations may feel empty. Habits that once distracted you may lose their appeal, because when your inner signal becomes stronger, anything that constantly interrupts it becomes easier to recognize. After the clearing comes movement. Decisions that once took months may begin taking days. Not because every answer becomes obvious, but because you stop spending so much energy negotiating with what you already know does not fit. This is where the cycle begins to break. The people who come after you do not need to inherit the belief that love means exhaustion. They can watch you practice boundaries without cruelty, presence without performance, and faith without disappearing. That is generational change. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like one person refusing to pass down a pattern that hurt them. One person learns to speak without begging, choose without fear, and protect peace without apologizing for having limits. Remember where this began. You noticed something about your hair. Maybe it was a desire to change it. Maybe the person in the mirror simply felt unfamiliar in a new way. What looked like a small detail opened a much larger question about identity. Now you know the answer. Your hair was never the miracle. Your return is the miracle of recognition. You are noticing yourself again. You are hearing your preferences again. You are becoming present enough to realize that the person who endured the old season does not have to hide as if that season never ended. So, if your hair changes, let the choice come from freedom. If it stays the same, let that choice come from freedom too. Do not create another rule out of a message that was meant to remove one. Your crown does not depend on a hairstyle, a texture, a length, or any physical feature. There will still be difficult days. There will still be moments when the old identity whispers that hiding would be easier. When that happens, return to the declarations. Return to clarity. Return to one honest choice. Because transformation becomes durable through repetition, not through one emotional moment. Look ahead now. Imagine entering a room without rehearsing how to make yourself smaller. Imagine looking in the mirror without immediately searching for something to criticize. Imagine choosing how you present yourself because it feels honest, not because fear has calculated what will attract the least resistance. Chosen one, heaven does not need you to become louder. You need to become more present. Present in your decisions, present in your relationships, present enough to know when something is beautiful for you, when something is finished, and when silence is wisdom rather than hiding. If this message found you at the right moment, write, I receive my crown in the comments. Let it be your closing marker, not a performance, not a promise that every circumstance changes tomorrow. Let it mean that you are willing to stop treating your old survival identity as your permanent name. Now carry this with you. You do not need to chase the next sign. You do not need to examine every strand or turn every ordinary detail into a prophecy. The message is already complete. What mattered was never the hair alone. What mattered was the awakening of your own attention. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to choose. You are allowed to protect peace. You are allowed to outgrow what once kept you alive. And you are allowed to honor the survivor without asking that survivor to lead every future chapter. Your crown is not somewhere outside waiting to be earned. It is the symbol of the presence you are learning to carry now. Walk gently, choose clearly, stay grounded. And when the mirror reflects someone you almost do not recognize, remember that sometimes the deepest transformation is simply meeting yourself again with peace.